Hi, I'm Dr. Berg, and today we need to talk about something that frustrates millions of people every single day. Stubborn blackheads, recurring acne, clogged pores that never seem to clear no matter how many trendy products you try. You've probably used scrubs, masks, steaming, expensive facials, or harsh chemical treatments. Yet the same problem keeps returning. The question is simple: why does it keep coming back, and what is the real fix that actually removes blackheads and acne at their roots so you, Dan, need to repeat a routine every week? If you've been struggling with this, I want you to think about something. What if the reason your pores are clogged has very little to do with the surface of your skin, and almost everything to do with what's happening underneath it? So here's the problem. Most people treat blackheads and acne topically, but the true cause is almost always internal. Now, before I explain the real fix in detail, I want you to think about the solution you believe might work and hold it in your mind for a moment. Then ask yourself, if what you've been doing actually worked, why are the results so temporary? That's exactly what we're going to solve today. And to understand the fix, you first need to understand what a blackhead actually is. Most people think it's just dirt trapped inside a pore, like something you can simply wash away. But that is not what a blackhead is. A blackhead is oxidized sebum. It's oil produced by your sebaceous glands, and when that thickened oil is exposed to air, it turns dark. So technically, blackheads aren't dirt, they're hardened oil plugs. And that plug forms because of one thing: your body is producing the wrong type of oil. And the moment you understand that, everything starts to make sense. Why some people get blackheads, no matter how clean their face is. Why pores refill. Why extractions don't last. Why harsh cleansers only irritate the skin and make things worse. The deeper causation behind it is biochemical, it's hormonal, it's nutritional. And the idea that a new face wash will fix it forever is unrealistic because none of those topical methods address the quality of the oil coming out of the pore. So why does the oil get thick and clog so easily? Because your sebaceous glands respond dramatically to insulin, stress hormones, inflammation, and nutrient deficiencies. This means acne and blackheads are not skin problems, they're metabolic problems that show up on the skin. Think about when your diet includes excess sugars and refined carbs. Your insulin spikes, and that spike creates thicker, stickier sebum. Then add stress. Cortisol increases inflammation, which increases oil production even more. Add a lack of vital nutrients like vitamin A, zinc, DHA, and B vitamins, and suddenly the skin can't regulate oil or exfoliate properly. The pores fill up, the oil oxidizes, and the cycle repeats. This is why people who clean obsessively still have blackhead. Why teenagers break out during hormonal shifts. Why adults who live high-stress lifestyles experience chronic acne even in their 30s and 40s. And this is why most skincare marketing is misleading. They focus on the external symptom, not the internal driver. You cannot out-exfoliate a hormonal imbalance. You cannot out-cleanse an insulin spike. You cannot mask inflammation with a fancy serum and expect long-term clarity. When you shift your thinking from what should I put on my skin to what is causing my skin to behave this way, you finally start moving toward a real and permanent fix. And yes, there is something you can do that acts almost like a one-time reset. Something that stops the cycle from repeating. Something that not only clears clogged pores, but also prevents them from refilling. Once you understand the physiological trigger we're about to get into, everything you thought you knew about acne and blackheads will look very different. But before we get into the fix, I want you to understand this next point clearly. Blackheads recur because your body keeps producing thickened oil. Changing the skin without changing the oil is like cleaning a faucet without fixing the pipes. The clog will return. So the solution must fix the pipe, not the faucet. This is where the one-time remedy becomes incredibly powerful. It works because it corrects the underlying chemistry that causes pores to block in the first place. Now that you understand the real cause, internal oil quality, we can transition into the fix itself. And this fix is not a product. It's not a peel. It's not a scrub. It's a physiological shift that changes the skin from the inside out, permanently. And once you do it, the skin becomes smoother, pores stay clean longer, and the heavy dark plugs that used to fill up simply stop reforming. Let us move into this deeper so I can show you how this transformation works and why it is so effective when everything else fails. Now that you understand the real reason blackheads and acne keep coming back, let's get into the core of the remedy itself. And remember, this isn't about giving you another temporary routine or another product to test. This is about shifting the internal environment that creates the problem in the first place. Because once you alter that environment, the skin changes automatically. The surface becomes the reflection of what's happening underneath. And when the internal chemistry is corrected, the pores simply stop filling with thick, wax-like oil. And when that changes, the blackheads vanish at the root. They don't just fall out, they stop forming. So let's walk through the mechanism that makes this remedy so powerful. Your skin produces sebum as a natural moisturizer and protective barrier. But when the body is inflamed, insulin resistant, nutrient deficient, or overstimulated by stress, that sebum becomes dense and sticky. It becomes the perfect material to clog a pore. It's not soft oil anymore, it's almost like a wax plug. And when that wax is exposed to air, it oxidizes and turns black, which is what you see on the surface. This thickened oil accumulates more rapidly than your pores can clear it. So even when you extract it manually, it comes right back within days or weeks. But when you shift the chemistry that creates this wax, your skin starts producing a thinner, healthier oil that doesn't block the pore. And this is the moment people describe as their one-time fix, not because they never touch their skin again, but because they stop fighting recurring clogs. The remedy begins with reducing the hormonal drivers that thicken sebum, primarily insulin and cortisol. These two hormones influence oil quality more than any moisturizer ever will. When insulin is chronically elevated from sugars, refined carbs, and frequent snacking, the sebaceous glands respond by producing more oil and thicker oil. But the moment insulin stabilizes, something remarkable happens. Sebum becomes lighter, cleaner, and more fluid. It no longer has that sticky, glue-like texture that forms plugs. The pore stays open. The skin begins to exfoliate naturally. You don't have to scrub aggressively because the body is no longer fighting itself. And then there's cortisol, the stress hormone. This hormone thickens the oil and increases inflammation in the skin. That inflammation traps dead skin cells inside the pore and makes the plug expand. But when cortisol comes down, inflammation drops with it. The pore becomes calmer. The oil production slows, and the clogging material that used to accumulate like concrete suddenly stops building up. This is why people often notice that stressful seasons of life trigger breakouts, and peaceful periods lead to clearer skin. Stress leaves biochemical fingerprints all over the skin, and when you correct that, the transformation is significant. But that's only half of the internal equation. The other half is nutritional. Your skin needs specific nutrients to regulate how fast it turns over cells, how it controls inflammation, how it repairs itself, and how it shapes the oil that comes out of each pore. When your body lacks vitamin A, the skin becomes rough and clogged. When it lacks zinc, the pores swell and trap oil. When it lacks omega-3 fatty acids, the oil becomes thick and sticky instead of smooth and fluid. These nutrient deficiencies create the perfect conditions for blackheads and acne to form, even if your skin is perfectly clean. So the one-time remedy works because it restores these missing elements and immediately improves the quality of your skin. Oil. It's almost like upgrading the fuel your skin runs on. Once you give the body what it needs, the pores stop misbehaving. The oil no longer oxidizes into hard black plugs. The skin starts to breathe again. And once you reach this balanced state, this corrected internal environment, you need to rely on constant topical treatments. You don't need to exfoliate daily. You don't need to pick or squeeze your skin ever again. Your face maintains clarity naturally, just the way it was designed. Another piece of this puzzle is something most people never consider: the microbiome of the skin. Your face has its own ecosystem of bacteria. And when this ecosystem is disturbed, usually by harsh cleansers, strong acids, or stripping soaps, the skin produces extra oil to compensate. This excess oil mixes with dead skin cells and forms plugs. But when your internal chemistry improves, the microbiome automatically rebalances. The skin becomes less reactive. The pores stay tighter, cleaner, and healthier. And this is what creates that clean, glassy, poreless look people try so hard to replicate through skincare alone. What surprises most people is how fast this shift happens. Once you correct the internal drivers, the pores begin to clear within days. Within weeks, the blackheads that were once deep and stubborn soften, shrink, and dissolve. Not because you dug them out, but because your body is no longer making the material that forms them. And that's why this is considered a one-time fix. You're not fixing the symptom, you're turning off the mechanism that causes the symptom. And when that mechanism is off, the problem is off, permanently. Now, to make this practical and easy to apply, we need to talk about the exact steps that create this internal transformation. This next part is where we go deep into the remedy, how it works, why it works, and how you can implement it without making your life complicated. The transition from thick, hardened sebum to clean, fluid oil is the key. And in the next segment, I'll show you exactly how to achieve that shift. To understand how to create this kind of internal shift, the shift that transforms your skin from clogged and inflamed to clear and community to know the specific changes that alter the quality of your sebum. Because once we change the oil, we change everything. And the beauty of this approach is that it doesn't rely on long routines or complicated steps. It's about giving your body what it needs so it can correct the problem for you. Your skin isn't broken. It's responding to a set of internal signals. And once those signals change, the response changes instantly. The first part of this internal transformation is stabilizing insulin. This one factor alone has cleared more skin than any cleanser ever created. When insulin spikes all day long, usually from sugars, sodas, juices, bread, pastries, processed snacks, and constant eating, your sebaceous glands react by producing more oil. But it's not just more oil, it's a different type of oil. It becomes thick, sticky, and slow-moving. It accumulates in the pore instead of flowing out of it. And when it sits there, exposed to the air, it oxidizes and turns into the black plug we call a blackhead. So the internal remedy starts with calming insulin down. This can be done simply by reducing the frequency of eating and cutting back on the foods that create these sharp insulin spikes. When insulin begins to normalize, something remarkable happens. The pores start releasing cleaner oil, the skin becomes less greasy, and the blackhead cycle slows dramatically. The second part of the transformation is lowering cortisol, the stress hormone. This hormone doesn't just affect your mood or sleep, it directly influences your skin. High cortisol increases inflammation, slows healing, and stimulates the glands in your skin to produce thicker oil. It also increases the buildup of dead skin cells inside each pore, making it harder for the pore to stay open and clean. Many people don't realize that their breakouts often flare during stressful periods, not because they're suddenly using the wrong product, but because their internal environment shifted. When cortisol softens, the pores calm down. Inflammation drops. The skin becomes smoother, tighter, and more predictable. And when you combine stable insulin with lower cortisol, the two largest drivers of thickened sebum begin backing off at the same time. That's when people start seeing noticeable changes very quickly. But there's a third piece that's equally important, and this is where most people miss the mark. Nutrient restoration. Your skin cannot regulate oil, inflammation, and cell turnover properly without specific nutrients. And even if you eat healthy, it's possible to miss the exact nutrients that play the biggest role in blackhead formation. Vitamin A, for example, is essential for controlling the rate at which your skin sheds old cells. Without enough of it, the skin becomes rough, pores trap debris, and the oil inside becomes harder and denser. Zinc plays a critical role in controlling inflammation and supporting the microbiome on your skin's surface. Without it, pores swell and trap oil much more easily. Omega-3 fatty acids thin the oil, making it smoother, more fluid, and less likely to oxidize. These nutrients are like the building blocks for clean, healthy, clear pores. And when they're missing, the skin develops an environment where blackheads thrive. Once you correct insulin, lower cortisol, and replenish these nutrients, you create a shift inside the body that changes the skin at its core. This is the one-time remedy. It's not a product you buy once, it's a biological reset. When you achieve this internal reset, the pores begin emptying on their own. The hardened material inside them starts softening, loosening, and dissolving. And because your body stops producing the thick, waxy oil in the first place, nothing refills the pore. That's why people describe the results as lump. They aren't maintaining clear skin through constant effort. They re-maintaining clear skin because the body has no reason to create blockages anymore. The next part of this transformation involves supporting your liver. This may surprise you, but the liver plays a huge role in skin clarity. When the liver is sluggish or overburdened, usually from processed foods, poor sleep, stress, or inflammation, your body pushes more toxins out through the skin. This creates irritation, worsens inflammation, and changes the texture of the oil your skin produces. A well-functioning liver, on the other hand, keeps the blood cleaner, keeps hormones balanced, and keeps inflammation low. When the liver is supported properly, the skin begins to brighten, pores shrink, and the complexion becomes clearer even before you touch the surface. This internal cleanup reflects outward naturally. But even more powerful than liver support is what happens when you increase the antioxidant capacity inside your body. Blackheads are oxidized oil, meaning the oil inside the pore reacts with oxygen and darkens. When your internal antioxidant levels rise, the oil is much less likely to oxidize. This means that even if a pore does have oil inside, it doesn't turn into a dark plug. The oil stays lighter, cleaner, and easier for the skin to manage. You essentially prevent blackheads from forming at the chemical level. When all these changes come together, the stabilized insulin, the calmer cortisol, the restored nutrients, the supported liver, and the increased antioxidants, you create an environment where blackheads simply cannot survive. The pores become self-cleansing, the skin becomes balanced, and instead of fighting a losing battle on the surface, you correct the engine that runs the entire system. This is why people often describe this remedy as almost magical. It's not magic, it's chemistry. And when the chemistry is right, the skin behaves beautifully. Now, to make this transformation practical and actionable, we need to bring everything together. In the next segment, I'll show you exactly how to apply this internal remedy in a simple, realistic way that doesn't require dramatic lifestyle changes but delivers dramatic skin changes. This is where everything becomes clear and usable. Now that you understand the internal drivers behind blackheads and acne and how they form at a biochemical level, we can finally bring everything together into the practical, real-world version of this remedy. This is where the transformation truly happens, because knowledge is one thing, but actually applying it in a way that fits into your life is what creates the visible changes on your skin. And remember, the goal here is not to give you a routine that you must repeat daily forever. The goal is to create a reset inside your body so that your skin begins taking care of itself. Once that reset happens, the pores remain clear, the oil stays fluid, and the stubborn clogs that used to reform every few days simply stop appearing. This is where the concept of a one-time fix finally makes sense. The first element of the practical application is giving your body periods of rest between meals. Most people eat far too often, and each meal or snack pushes insulin up. When insulin rises repeatedly throughout the day, the oil glands produce that thickened, waxy sebum that clogs pores. But when you give your body longer gaps between meals 3 to 4 hours, at minimum, the insulin comes down naturally. And when insulin stays lower for longer periods, the oil in your skin becomes lighter, smoother, and far less likely to oxidize or form a plug. This doesn't require extreme measures. It simply means eating at normal intervals instead of grazing all day. The body begins to stabilize, the sebaceous glands calm down, and within a surprisingly short time, the difference in skin texture becomes noticeable. The next part is reducing the foods that cause the sharpest insulin spikes. Sugars, sweets, refined bread, pastries, and anything made with white flour push insulin to a level that signals the skin to produce oil aggressively. But when you shift toward whole foods, vegetables, proteins, healthy fats, you remove the biggest trigger for thickened sebum. This doesn't mean you need to eliminate everything enjoyable. It means you become aware of how food affects your skin. When people make this shift, they often notice their oiliness drop dramatically, sometimes within just a few days. The pores stop filling up as quickly, and the existing clogs start to soften because the body is no longer producing the same hardened oil. To complement the insulin changes, the next practical step is restoring the nutrients your skin depends on. This is not a complicated list, it's actually very simple. Your skin needs vitamin A to regulate cell turnover, zinc to support healing and reduce inflammation, vitamin E to protect the oil in your pores from oxidizing, and omega-3 fatty acids to thin the oil and make it fluid. When any of these are missing, your skin becomes reactive. But when all of them are present, your skin becomes balanced. You can restore these through food, which often works better than supplements. Foods rich in vitamin A help smooth the skin from the inside. Zinc-rich foods strengthen the pore lining and reduce swelling. Omega-3 sources instantly change the texture of your oil, making it far less likely to harden. When these nutrients begin circulating through your body consistently, the pores behave differently. They remain open, clean, and far less inflamed. Supporting the liver is another practical but extremely important step. The liver is responsible for filtering toxins, regulating hormones, and controlling inflammation. When it's overloaded, everything shows on the skin. But when the liver has the nutrients and conditions it needs to function well, the skin becomes clearer and more radiant. This support can come from simple habits like adding leafy greens, bitter vegetables, and hydrating properly because these foods provide what the liver needs to do its job. When the liver improves, the blood becomes cleaner and your skin becomes clearer almost automatically. You don't have to force anything on the surface. Another crucial part of this practical remedy is improving sleep quality. Poor sleep elevates cortisol, and high cortisol thickens your oil and inflames the skin. When you sleep deeply and consistently, cortisol drops, the skin repairs, and inflammation fades. This creates a smoother surface and calmer pores. You don't need perfect sleep every night, just consistent patterns that allow the body to restore itself. The difference in skin quality becomes apparent fairly quickly once sleep improves. There's also a powerful effect that comes from increasing your internal antioxidant levels. As we discussed earlier, blackheads are oxidized oil. That means antioxidants are your internal defense system against blackhead formation. When you consume foods that are rich in antioxidants, berries, green vegetables, herbs, spices, the oil in your pores becomes far more resistant to oxidation. This prevents the darkening of the oil and limits the formation of those stubborn black plugs. Even if a pore contains a bit of oil, it doesn't oxidize as easily, which means it doesn't turn into a blackhead. When all of these elements come together, the stabilized insulin, the lowered cortisol, the restored nutrients, the supported liver, the improved sleep, and the heightened antioxidant levels, you create a shift so powerful that the skin begins functioning like it's supposed to. The pores stop clogging, the oil stays clean, the inflammation disappears, and the skin begins to look smoother, clearer, and more refined. People often describe this as their skin waking up. It's not that the skin suddenly changed, it's that the internal environment finally gave it the conditions it needed to thrive. And this is the essence of the one-time remedy. Once your internal chemistry is corrected, your skin stays clear without needing extreme routines. The pores remain free, not because you're constantly exfoliating them, but because your body is no longer producing the material that clogs them. This is the point where the skin maintains itself.